Greetings, welcome to my video for shoulder strength, rotator cuff strength, and or possibly repair depending on where your injury may or may not be at. I myself have injured my rotator cuff a couple times. Some of it, most of it happened through repetitive popular styles of yoga where I didn't do a great job of listening to my body or what I actually know about biomechanics. Oops, it's okay, we all do it. So in this video there's going to be some of what you would recognize as yoga, but also some exercises that counter a lot of the compression and pushing that is common in yoga. So there'll be some pulling. You see I have a blanket here, so what you'll need is a mat and any type of blanket. It does not have to be a typical yoga blanket at all. So let's get started. So over here on the mat, we'll just do some warm-ups, and if you need more warm-up time, which you may, then perhaps you want to do some before you start in on the video. So as we enter into the cat-cow motions here, you may want to consider for the hand support in this practice being a little wider than your shoulders and a bit of a turned out position in the hands. And as we breathe here, inhaling and then exhaling, we'll take our elbows down on the inhale, and then as we exhale, we'll lengthen from the front of the pubic bone up through the navel, and then for the purpose of the cat pose, then we'll end up rounding the upper spine. We don't really want to round the lower spine too much. We just want to lengthen it and then create a little curve here. If you would like to stay more neutral, just use the muscles in the front of the spine to get longer instead of rounder. Okay, so from here, we'll curl the toes under. And again, I'm going to use a slightly wider position. My hands, so the fingers actually drape off the mat. And I'll hug the elbows in towards one another. And right now I have my index fingers are parallel to the sides of the mat. You may want to play around with that positioning based on how your shoulders feel and stability in general. And then from here I'm going to take almost a cat pose, and just when I feel like the musculature is starting to tense up around right where the lower ribs are, then I'll push up with the knees. I'm not going to straighten them all the way, and then I'm going to continue lengthening so my shoulders go a little forward. And this creates less of compression in the shoulder joint where you're just hanging out in the shoulders. So it's a bit of a longer dog. Now if I went to my full range of motion, this is part of what I believe helped injure me, is I would be back here. I'm going to find a little happy medium and not quite be there all the time. So from here we'll come to our tippy toes with a little bent leg, a little tilt of the tail. Take a breath in, maybe even bend your elbows so they come towards the ground, and then as you exhale, keep the limbs bent and let your body continue the cat-cow motion. So as you come into the cow pose, the limbs will be more apt towards bending, and as you lengthen, your limbs might straighten a little bit. That's fine. Just let them straighten with the movement of the spine and not by thinking about straightening them. When this gets to be too much, go back to your knees and do it. Otherwise, I'm going to do 3 more here. So if your baseline of strength is a little bit less than mine, then that's fine. You just come to your knees. Next time you exhale, lift from the low belly, draw the ribs in a bit, and then let the knees descend until they hover for about maybe an inch, maybe a centimeter, maybe you can barely feel the fabric of your pants on the floor. And then breathe here, letting the head be pretty neutral so it's not hanging down, but it's also not craned up. And then when you feel like you're about done, things are shaking, you can take your knees down. There. Let the feet flip. If child's pose isn't amenable to you, you can come to more of a upright kneel. I'll come down here. Alright, so the heat in the body is moving a bit here. It's also moving outside of me as it is blowing on the vent behind me. So, but just to create a little bit more warm-up, we'll come to our forearms. We'll take the hands together. And then from here, as I lift the belly and create a little bit of tension in the front of the spine, I'm going to drop down slowly. If you'll notice, my elbows are in front of the shoulders just a tad bit. I'm going to press the hands into the floor like I'm trying to slice all the way down into the center of the earth. And then my feet are going to unfurl, which I should have done sooner. So as you press down, as you press into the floor, you'll feel, of course, that your shoulder blades will protract a bit. You don't want to be here, right? And then every time you exhale, feel a little lengthening of the low belly drawing up more than in. So don't suck in your belly. Think about accessing muscles at the base of the pelvis, also known as maybe the pelvic floor or just above the pelvic diaphragm. Just do subtle motions here. We already did some big motions, now we're doing some subtle motions. Good. Next time you inhale, take your elbows, maybe a bit wider than your shoulders, and your palms are up, thumbs facing away from one another. Pretend like you're going to touch your thumbs to the floor. Mine happen to barely touch. And then keep your upper arms exactly as they are, and rotate just your lower arms. And then we'll do this a few times. And then we're going to flip back the palms up. And I'll let you go at your own pace, or you can just follow along with me. And if at any time this feels really creaky or compressive in the low back, you can always take a blanket or a rolled up yoga mat, like a thin one, right underneath the front hip points. It can be a good spot. Sometimes I have to do that. Alright, so from here, if you choose, you can start to come up a little higher. So pick the hand position that works for you. You can even go back to the prayer position. And then as you come here, you can take the weight off of the thighs, hug the elbows in, let the shoulder blades come a little bit together, and then maybe down the back. So pretend like you're sliding your hands in, and then slide away. And slide forward. I usually do the forward on the exhale, because that's where the low back tends to dip. And then I breathe in a little bit on the pushback. Do 10 total. And we're trying our very best to keep integrity in the muscles in front of the spine, all the way from the front of the tailbone to the front of the sternum even. If you feel like you're dipping down, just take your hips back down, but do the same motion. Come down here and relax. Always good. And just move things around. If you want to cross your arms on your mat like so, I'm crisscrossing the arms and giving myself a little hug. If that feels okay, you can even take your elbows in closer. And then side to side. Don't worry about the feet, I'm just doing that because I can. Lower body is optional. Try this with the upper body. Just going side to side. Elbows can be far away or close. And then you can switch which arm is on top. And again, you can work in closer. Further might be better if you have shorter upper arms. So don't be afraid to take it in your own way. What you're hearing now is the evil bunny trying to wrestle more water from his little water container there, and I think he thinks he gets more out if he shakes the cage. Maybe he's right, I don't know. So from here, just take a little baby cat pose to come up. Now I feel pretty warm, but I'm going to do one more thing because you may not be warm. So from here, I'm going to come to an upright kneel, which is here. So my head's going to disappear, and that's okay because you don't need to see my head. I'm going to face you. And I'm going to come down to my heels. So arms are here in a cactus shape, and I'm going to pull them back a little bit. And I'm trying to pull apart and back. So it's not just about me squeezing my shoulder blades behind me like I'm trying to pinch a penny. It's nothing like that. It's like somebody's grabbed onto my elbows here with a little string and they're gently pulling me in either direction. And then I go back and I try to get tall here as I do so rather than bulging the ribs out. Good. And then we'll take what I call the lucky cat. So here we go. And you may not have the benefit of a mirror like I kind of do right now where I can see if one arm's dipping, you know? And we'll just do this a few times. I'm going to do quite a few of these. So a few was a lie. It was an outright lie. Probably going to do about 20. And as you do this, if you want, you can take it like this. I'll show you. If you want to do more stuff. Okay, so on an inhale, the forearms are upright right now. You can't see, but you'll see. And then as you exhale, find that little curling motion in the belly that we were doing on the forearms. Take the arms down, and then come down. Hello. And then inhale, and then exhale. So I'm trying to keep my elbows on the same plane. It's a little harder when you're doing other things. And then as I use the exhale and that little curl and lift in the belly, I'm also engaging the glutes at some point because you have to. My hips are to some degree an extension. So this will be a lot on the knees for some of you. So please don't take it too far. For others, the thighs will be screaming. And if you want even more, you don't have your feet curled because the feet are giving you more support and they're activating different muscles when they're curled under. Hello. This is so much fun. We'll do 3 more. 2 more. Trying to push back there. Good. And the last one, you decide if you want to take it really far back till you can reach. If you can't reach like that, just come here and then reach back. And then we'll chill out with a little stretch. And then we'll get to the grand finale. Sort of the finale. You don't have to rock back and forth here. Remember, ankle mobility is a thing, and mine is a little crazy. So the knees don't lift naturally. Don't force it. And then for some people with a lot more booty flesh, I'm not naming names here, you might have to tuck it under. So there's that. Okay, hands can be wide, fingers can point in different directions. Don't feel like there's one magical formula. We're just getting stretches all in and around the shoulder joint, the upper arm. Okay, it's blankie time. So, where's your blanket? Now, if you have a rug, I've been able to do it with certain sheets, like the sateen sheets, ones that are kind of slippery. But this is what we're going to work here. So my hands are going to be off the blanket. And I'm going to start with them wide, because wide tends to be easier. With the hands turned out a bit. Okay? Keep your head down. And then grip the floor and have the sense that you're pressing your forearms even to the floor, even though they're going to move. If you press in enough with your forearms and you use the whole hand and you grip a little bit, okay, a little gripping, I'll show you what that looks like, a little grip, where the knuckles at the distal part of the finger, the far end, lift up a little bit. Now I don't want the knuckles here to lift up in the actual part of the hand, but a little bit of gripping can be good with the finger pads. Okay. So if you press in properly, you might even feel that the armpits kind of hollow out a bit. And if you use that little lifting and drawing in that we were doing earlier, use the exhale, because that's where it's anatomically appropriate, or more appropriate, and then you start to push yourself forward. Now you might not move very far, and that's fine. And then inhale, and as you exhale, draw the belly in a bit and push yourself backwards. Okay? So this is like doing pull-ups on the floor without the hanging, which can often not be good for anybody with a shoulder injury, depending on what it is. So as you exhale, you're activating the strength of the core. You can even activate the glutes a little bit. You kind of have to. And then as you pull, you might even decide that you'll go further forward. You don't have to lift up your chest like I did. And then you push back as far as you want to. Just remember, the further your hands are in front, the more activation is required to pull you up. Now, this depends on your strength. Some people might be able to start better here because there's obviously less to pull, but some people might work better here depending on where their weaknesses are. So as you exhale, again, we're activating like we're coming into that little position, and then as you pull, keeping the head down. I don't want to use my neck for this. And then you might have to use your finger pads like this, tarantula hands as I call them, to push you back. That's not necessarily bad. And then if you want to, you can do this the whole time, depending on your wrists. So how many times do you want to do this? Let's do 2 more. I breathe to relax and I exhale to effort. And I'm always using that tiny bit of activation down in the lowest part of my belly. You don't have to squeeze in. You don't have to do crazy squeezing, but you can if you feel it helps. All right, uno más. I'm going to take my hands in a little narrower because that's a bit harder for a lot of people, in particular the anatomical structure of women. And then inhale. Taking the hands in uses less of the chest, and so it can actually be easier for women. I don't think I verbalized that correctly. Sorry. All right, so from here, and of course, you may need to do some wrist stuff. That's okay. And 5 or 10 of those. For some people, just 1 is enough to really feel like you've done something new and different with your body. And then we'll work our way back to the mat. And what I would recommend doing here is to take the hands behind the back. You can clasp if you like at the fingertips, or you can just rest one forearm higher than the other. And you can sort of pull the upper arm bones, what's often referred to as the shoulders, back. You can switch, just get a little stretch. Turning your head side to side or just having a neutral position is fine. And then what I like to do is, I do like to clasp if I can and pull apart, and then switch the hands and pull apart, just so I'm getting different types of movement in the shoulder blades. It's not all just sort of pulling back. There's a little pulling apart and hugging into the rib cage. And then for those of you that can do this pretty safely, we'll interlace the fingers And then you don't really want to be stuck here with your upper arm bones in your personal space and your chin. So if pulling back here and feeling space between your earlobes and the top of your shoulders isn't what you're finding, then I would recommend not releasing the hands off of the body. And what we'll do is keep a slight bend in the elbows, so we're not just putting all of the energy into the elbow joint. We actually have more activation. This would be, for me, locked elbows, so just the tiniest bend in the elbow starts activating, pulling more muscles into this lengthening action, and so I can get more out of it. And then the trick is to try to unravel with strength and a little resistance, so you're not just pinging off. So we want to create a little bit of resistance and strength at that end range of motion. Yay! And then if those thighs are still a little wonky from those tilt backs that we did, you can grab your foot, pull it to your butt, or bridge the gap with a long belt or strap. And then that's about it for this particular session. So you can add this to your yoga routine or a strength routine, or start teaching it in classes if you're a yoga teacher. Or you can just have fun with it and use it for a party trick. I don't know. Thanks for watching.